Welcome to the Osmo Early Bird Podcast. I'm your old pal E-Mac coming to you with Thursday's NBA action, no NFL, and only 2 NBA games starting at 8 o'clock. I'm joined by Adam, Ship My Money Sharer. Adam, what are we going to do about a 2-game Thursday slate? I had written it off for myself. I even have already told my wife, hey, you know what? Why don't we do dinner? We can do a movie. There's no NFL. There's no nothing. It's by the holidays. Let's get into the spirit. And then I went over and looked at Yahoo. Yahoo has, on the 2-game slate for Thursday night, a $10,000 contest called the $100,000 contest. My error here. With 25% overlay, it is the $100,000 baller. And it is going to guarantee $25,000 in overlay. They are only taking in $75,000 in entries. So that means you only have to best 7,500 other people for a prize pool, the equivalent of 10,000 people. Sounds like we're going to play some NBA on Thursday, Adam.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to play and you're not a high volume guy, as I've been saying, it's the spot to be at. Like your first, $100 or whatever should be spent there if you're not a high volume guy, because the manually uploading your lineups doesn't negatively affect you if you're not playing a ton of volume on other sites. And playing in contests with overlay is just better for your bottom than playing in contests without overlay. So it should be pretty self-explanatory that if you have the time to hand build 10 lineups, you should be playing on Yahoo.
Absolutely, and they have a $1 version of this contest as well. That one was the one that did not fill on Tuesday night, but the $10 version did, and it was the reverse on Wednesday night. The $1 one filled, and the $10 one actually had about 2,500 spaces left in it. So keep that in mind as you're doing this. Reminder, you still have to cash to monetize this, but you're beating a lot less players. So how overlay works, basically, it means if that contest ends up filling up with the 7,500 people, as soon as it clicks lock, your cash earnings will show at $1.25 for every dollar you have in there. So keep that in mind. If you have not yet signed up with Yahoo DFS, you would use your basic Yahoo Fantasy Sports account, which I'm sure we all have at this point. But if you have not yet made a deposit on the daily fantasy side, you can use promo code OSMO and get a $30 deposit match up to your first $30, and that comes in the form of Yahoo player points, which are usable immediately for entry into any contest. And they are running this out, the $1 million baller version of this. They did that for week 15 NFL. They are doing it for week 16 NFL as well. By the time you are all hearing this, you'll have the free article up on the Osmo homepage just after breakfast on Thursday. I'll get that posted. It's mostly written, so check that out. We've got you covered. Adam, some quick news and notes here, and then I'm going to turn this over to you. There are just 2 games, so we'll hit this game by game. We have Houston is the only team on a back-to-back. They will be heading to Miami. They will be taking on the Heat. Houston is road favorites by 3 points, and this is a 208 over-under. The second game of the night should be a fun one, actually. It's Dallas and the Lakers. This one is in the Clippers. This one is in Los Angeles. The Clips are favored by 3.5, 221 over under. News and notes: Eric Gordon has been playing with a sore knee, so we'll just need to double check his status since they are on the back-to-back. And we, of course, are recording this on Wednesday night. Zhao Qi was waived, so we don't have to worry about him. Nene Hilario is a little bit hit or miss. They may use him, they may not. Marquise Chris is healthy, so that kind of chops up all those bench minutes. And then Isaiah Hartenstein is also available. I'm mentioning all of this because we only have 4 teams in our player pool, and if you're going to be dipping over on Yahoo or any of the other large field tournaments, you're going to be looking for some differentiation. So I just want to call out those guys, probably not ones to touch. For Miami, we have Josh Richardson as probable. He missed Tuesday's practice with hip soreness. Tyler Johnson is probable. He's been dealing with the migraine. He did not practice on Wednesday. He's also been dealing with the sore hip the last couple games, so keep that in mind. Justice Winslow is questionable with an ankle issue, but he has not yet practiced this week. And Goran the Dragon just underwent arthroscopic knee surgery. He's out for 2 months. And then Hassan Whiteside should be good to go. Fourth quarter will be optional. For Dallas, J.J. Barea looks to be good after missing a couple of games with an ankle injury. Maxi Kleber has missed the last couple games, been hit or miss for nearly a fortnight here with the sore toe. Dennis Smith Jr. is doubtful with a wrist injury that's kept him out for most of the last 2 weeks, save for one game. So I expect Dennis Smith Jr. to be out. We'll have to see what happens with Maxey. And then for the Clippers, we have Sweet Lou Williams popped back up as questionable, which is an improvement because he has been missing time with a hamstring injury. They still do not expect him to play until Christmas, but the fact that he has been popping up as anything other than out just wants us to keep that in the back of the mind because as we see with their guard rotation, if he starts carving out any minutes, that's going to upset the apple cart there. Although, Adam, Avery Bradley had like 30 minutes in the last game, and I think he outscored me by 3 fantasy points. So your mileage.
Yeah, Avery Bradley back to doing Avery Bradley things.
Yes. Well, let's start off with Houston and Miami. I'm just going to turn this over to you. What do you got for us?
James Harden's really good. But, I mean, seriously, like on a 2-game slate, obviously it's tough to find good value, but it's also tough to find guys that can score 80 fantasy points, and James Harden has that kind of upside here. It is a pace-up spot for Houston, as is pretty much everything. But not as but the thing that really stands out for Harden is that even since Chris Paul's return from injury, still has a 38.5% usage rate and a 42.5% assist percentage, averaging about 1.5 fantasy points per minute. And that's a little bit different than earlier in the season when we saw Chris Paul taking more assists away from him than he is right now. So usage being up and the assists being up, it just still gives you a guy with a really high floor and ceiling on the slate where, obviously options are limited.
All right. You were breaking up just a teensy bit there, but everybody will get the gist of that for Harden. Looking up and down the remainder of the lineup, Capella in a tough matchup here with Whiteside. Chris Paul, always intriguing as sort of the sidekick to James Harden, and he is capable of doing a lot of good things himself. Those would be the two guys that I'm intrigued by, but everybody else is going to be intrigued by them with just 4 teams in the player pool. Outside of them, is there anybody from Houston you would consider on Thursday night?
Yeah, so, I mean, obviously Capella and Paul are both, fine. But one thing that stands out is, again, there's probably going to be a lack of value with only 4 teams going. So you don't have to get the same kind of multipliers out of your value plays as you do on full slates. PJ Tucker should play 36 to 38 minutes in this game. He's only $3,700 on DraftKings. It obviously gives him the opportunity just to be one of the top value plays. And then behind him, depending in part on who is available for Houston, but you could see if Nene's out again, you could see a few additional minutes for either Daniel House or Gerald Green, if not both, depending on how small Houston wants to play. So I think those guys, as players that you can have exposure to if you're playing like 150 lineups on this slate. But as far as someone who I think is actually like a good play, PJ Tucker at 3,700 makes a lot of sense.
All right, moving along here to the Miami side of things. If we want a good chuckle, we know that Miami on the season is running at the 16th fastest pace. Houston has slid all the way down to 29th. They are ahead of only Memphis. So shocker of shockers, a quote pace down spot here for Miami. It's all relative. They do have a 208 over under again. The other game has a 221 over under. Richardson, Adebayo. I don't think Winslow's going to play myself. James Johnson in the mix. Rodney Magruder will probably be on the floor to miss some shots. Anybody here from Miami? Because they're missing some heavy minutes here with some of their guys. It feels like we can't just write them off, particularly since we'd be crossing off 25% of our player pool.
Right. I mean, Josh Richardson, I think, is the one that you're going to feel safest about, just because that he should go out there and play around 36 minutes, get some more ball handling responsibilities without Goran Dragic out there. Tyler Johnson came off the bench in the last game against New Orleans, but if Justice Winslow is out, I would expect that you get Tyler Johnson inserted back into the starting lineup. Either way, probably plays 26 to 28 minutes at a decent price tag for a 4-game slate at only 5,100. So I think both of those guys are fine. If Winslow's out, then maybe we see some more run for James Johnson at a cheap price tag. It's still concerning just because Miami does still have plenty of bodies. and Johnson, just really hasn't been playing a lot of minutes. But also if Winslow's out, it helps to solidify minutes for Kelly Olynyk at a cheap price tag. He is someone who is also capable of facilitating. So the fact that Dragic is out makes it an even more appealing spot for Olynyk in terms of what to expect on a per minute basis. And then obviously you get to the center position with Whiteside, who is only $7,000 on DraftKings. That's a price tag that's cheap enough that even if he only plays like 24 minutes, he can give us a good enough score. But you have to keep in mind that just because he hasn't played the fourth quarter in his last 3 games doesn't mean he's not going to play the fourth quarter in this game against Houston. I think a lot of it probably just has to do with how he's playing, how Bam's playing, and how the team's playing. So there's a ton of volatility there. But with the price tag being as low as it is, it's essentially a spot where if Whiteside gets to play in the fourth quarter, it's almost impossible for him not to smash this price tag. So on a 4-game slate where there's limited upside, it's one of my favorite plays, especially in tournaments.
All right. I'm going with Kelly Olynyk. Here's why. In 8 of his last 9 games, he has topped 24 fantasy points, including a couple forays into the mid-30s. That is something somehow I had not realized because in general, I usually don't look to Miami for players. So that's, a personal bias I have, but I wanted to check in and see what he was doing. On Yahoo, he is just $12. That is going to be very, very helpful there. Now, obviously on a 2-game slate, it's hard to have people go overlooked, but if some people just have a bias towards him, the 12 is going to stand out on Yahoo. 4,700 on DraftKings may not stand out, but he's right in that mix for the mythical 5, 6 points per thousand that we look for as a decent play. So I'm going to be using Kelly Olynyk. This does not feel good saying it, Adam.
No, I mean, but if you look at his numbers without Goran Dragic on the floor this season, he's averaged 0.97 DraftKings points per minute. He's got a 19% usage rate, but he backs that up with an 11% rebound percentage and a nearly 15% assist percentage. So he's actually a pretty well-rounded player when he's out there. The issue is just getting minutes. When Whiteside and Bam are both healthy, his minutes come at the 4, but with James Johnson not really playing a bunch of minutes, basically opening the third quarter or the first quarter and the third quarter and then not playing anymore, it opens up more minutes for Olynyk. With Goran Dragic out, it has a trickle-down effect because Justice Winslow essentially plays more minutes at point guard without Dragic out there, so that opens up more minutes at the 4. And then, obviously it's possible that Winslow sits as well. So I really do think that Olynyk becomes one of the best plays from Miami here.
All right, I am marking that down. I'm saving that clip, and we're going to use that in some promotions, Adam. That you think Kelly Olynyk is the best play from Miami here. I will use that completely out of context somewhere else.
I've also never gotten Kelly Olynyk correct in my entire life, so that's the disclaimer.
All right. Anybody else here from Miami? Perhaps the venerable Dwayne Wade, who is on his farewell tour.
Yeah, sure, he's fine. I mean, it's a 4-game slate or a 2-game slate, and Dwayne Wade can score a bunch of points, but he's not someone that I think benefits from anything going on with this team.
All right, let's look at the second game here. The crown jewel of this one, for those of you that want to take a little stroll on Narrative Street, we have one DeAndre Jordan coming back for the first time to Los Angeles to face the Clippers. Now, the first time and only time these teams have played this season was in Dallas. He had 33 and a half minutes. He got 16 points, 27 rebounds. That is a number that gets you up to 50 fantasy points. I love him today. We will not be alone because there are so few options, but this is one of those where you feel like you can get him penciled in for the scoring, and that's usually the key to unlocking his upside because he's always in the low to mid-teens for rebounds. So that's something that is exciting to me. Some people may think, oh, let's look and see what they're going to do with Boban. Perhaps he'll get to go against him since he's got the size, etc., and is more imposing than Montreal Harrell will be. Well, the only time these two teams faced, Boban played just over a minute, wrapping up the second quarter. So I don't know that I'd rush right to that. Where do you want to rate as a point per dollar play DeAndre Jordan with Harden and anybody else on the slate here?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's Yeah, he's my favorite center point per dollar. In tournaments, I mentioned that I like the ceiling that Whiteside offers, and hopefully he comes at lower ownership than DeAndre Jordan does. But if for some reason you're playing cash games on this slate, or even just playing tournaments, I think Jordan's obviously a perfectly fine play in either one because he's relatively inexpensive. He should play around 32 minutes here, and it's a Clippers front court that he should just absolutely eat against. A combination of Marcin Gortat and Montrezl Harrell. We've seen opportunities for Boban to play lately, and he hasn't played. So I'm not expecting him to be out there. But even if he is, it doesn't really deter me from DeAndre Jordan. He should just go absolutely nuts in the spot.
All right. Fanning out to the rest of Dallas, just a reminder, it looks like Dennis Smith Jr. will probably most likely miss this game with his bum wrist. Luka Doncic has been outstanding. He's all the way up to 8,400 on DraftKings. That price I feel is absolutely appropriate. He has just been phenomenal, and he's unlocked some of his upside, topping 49 fantasy points in 3 of his last 4 games. He started that off on the 12th of December against Atlanta, and I believe I was on a show that day saying, when are we ever going to see the upside? This guy never cracks 40 fantasy points. Well, hey, there you go. The 19-year-old has turned it on. I like this price point. I think it is fair, and I'm hoping it scares some people away. Adam, what are you going to do with Doncic and anybody else for the Mavs?
Yeah, I'm there with you on Doncic. Josh and I had talked about it a lot too, how he's just been one of the least volatile players out of guys that are, actually good and produce like he does. It's actually been shocking how little volatility there's been in his scores, which, to that point made him unappealing in tournaments. But we also pointed out that he is 19, he's a rookie. And with the game that he has, there's no reason to think that lasts forever. And we're finally seeing, the upside be there. But the point about the volatility still holds true in that he's been very consistent. And, he rebounds, he picks up assists, he scores, he plays, 30, anywhere between 32 and 36 minutes. So he's been consistent. And the price tag increase isn't really that scary because if he does keep producing like he has been, which I think that if Dennis Smith Jr. is out, you do get more ball handling responsibilities for him and you get more upside in the way of assists. But he still is a high floor play just because he doesn't really have games where he sucks.
Here's the one thing that stands out in those 4 games where he's topped the 49 fantasy points. He's gotten double-digit free throw attempts in all of them. Prior to that, I always love these. In his career prior to that, he only had 1 game of double-digit free throws. He now has 4 in his career, but they've come. 3 of them have come in the last 4 games here. So that's really the only thing that's standing out. Minutes are within reason. They've ticked up some, but are still within reason to what he had been doing. The rebounds are in line with what he's been doing. Assists are relatively in line, a little bit higher in those games, but only higher by a couple here and there. So this is something that potentially could be sustainable with DSJ out. So we'll have to see. We are definitely paying a pretty penny for him on DraftKings over on Yahoo. Let's see where he is a small forward eligible there, and he is $34. So that on the whole slate has him as the second highest priced player. So that'll be something for people to think about. James Harden, of course, is topping Yahoo at 56. But coming in the rest of the price tag with Clint Capella at 33, Chris Paul at 32, Tobias Harris at 31, Gallinari at 26, Whiteside 26, Jordan 25. So you can see that there's a significant difference between the top 3 or 4 guys once you get out of Harden and then down through the rest of the slate, which makes sense because there's only 4 teams in the player pool. Looking across here to the Clippers, let's assume that Lou Williams is out. How are you considering the backcourt here? And I don't want to play Avery Bradley. I will cry if you say Avery Bradley.
I don't want to play Avery Bradley either. I think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is the most appealing out of the backcourt just because really he's the most talented scorer out of him, Beverly, and Bradley. He most likely will play more minutes than Pat Beverly. He'll play less minutes than Avery Bradley, but Avery Bradley would need to play about 86 minutes to be useful. So Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is the guy that I would most happily go to from this backcourt.
All right. Otherwise it kind of looks like the Dallas guys are going to stand out there with Barea or Matthews, even Jalen Brunson, who is 11 over here on Yahoo. You'll want to consider him and just move along from there. but yeah, Alexander's going to be our guy from the Clips. Ranking Tobias Harris, Danilo Gallinari, and Montreal Harrell. What is the order going to be today, Adam? This is one of our favorite games, and I have a new game coming up for you, which will be fun, and then we'll get out of here.
Yeah, I mean, it's always a price thing for me. The other night we had Harris at 7,200 and Gallo at 6,600, and it became more appealing, I think, to play Tobias Harris. But after that monster game he's back to 7,800, where now on DraftKings he's $1,200 more expensive than Gallo, and it's just not – he's not that much better from a fantasy standpoint to where we need to pay that $1,200, especially because people always roster Harris and they don't roster Gallo. So, I would lean Gallo there where he is a lot cheaper. Montrezl Harrell, obviously, you only want to consider in tournaments. It is a tough matchup for him, but a lot of his minutes will actually come against Dwight Powell and not DeAndre Jordan, probably at least 16 of his 26 minutes. And that is a good matchup there. So I expect him to have maybe some trouble with DeAndre, but his time out there against Dwight Powell, he should be absolutely fine. He's still inexpensive. He's still a very good, point per minute guy. So no issues with Harrell at $5,800.
All right. Any final thoughts for the slate before we get into our giveaways and then we test Adam's trivial knowledge?
Nothing special other than if you're playing tournaments on a 2-game slate, you can obviously take chances if you're playing a lot of lineups, doing things like making sure you have some Boban exposure if for some reason he plays, or some, whoever, I don't know, just other high upside guys that could get more minutes. Boban was, the first obvious example. And one other thing I guess to throw out, I mentioned PJ Tucker at 3,700. Marcin Gortat at 3,400 is really too cheap for him as well in a game where he probably plays 22 to 24 minutes.
All right, 24 days of giveaways. We are going to give everybody a chance here to get in a drawing. The top prize for Thursday's drawing will be 1 free month of all access Awesemo.com content. So you're going to want to leave a comment if you're on iTunes and a rating, and leave a comment and a thumbs up if you are going to comment on the YouTube channel. And you can comment on both shows, and you can comment on any other shows we do. We'll have our poor multimedia guys gonna go collect all the comments, put everybody in the virtual hat, and do the drawing, and one lucky winner will get the 1 month of free Awesemo Full Premium. Now, the comment of the day is, who is your favorite NBA journeyman? So this can be, anybody that you like. We talked about who was the random player that you liked for an odd reason. I mentioned Kurt Rambis. I can't remember now who you had, but yes. So we've done a few of these. So who is your favorite journeyman? I want somebody that has played on at least 4 NBA squads. You can pick who it is. So we're going to play a little game here with Adam to test his knowledge, because he has been a basketball fan for a long time. So we are looking at Garrett Temple, we are looking at Shelvin Mack, and we are looking at Trevor Ariza. And we're going to play a game, who played for this team? Now, I will only give you a team if at least one of those 3 played for him. But if I were to say the Washington Wizards, you would want to say all 3 played for them. If I were to say the Memphis Grizzlies, you would say
all 3.
No, because Trevor Ariza did not. Yes, so this will be more fun. So we're gonna do. I'm just gonna do 4 teams. So we're not gonna to run this out for a long time. But which of this trio played for Houston?
Ariza
and
Mac.
Garrett Temple was actually drafted by Houston. It's he was either drafted by Houston or Sacramento or San Antonio. He played 3 places his rookie year, or he was a free agent for all of those. But there we are for that one. Who played for Atlanta?
Definitely Shelvin Mack, and I think that's it.
That is correct. Just Shelvin Mack. Who played for Milwaukee?
None of them.
Garrett Temple did have 9 games. He played a grand total of 9 minutes in those 9 games, but he did play for Milwaukee. And we'll do two more here. We've got who played for New Orleans?
Ariza.
Yes. And then the last one, who played for Orlando? Or which?
Mac.
Yes. And?
Ariza?
Ariza played for them for 3 seasons. I did not know that. I think we had this conversation either last year or the beginning of this year about Ariza. I had totally forgotten about his 2 years in New York and then 3 or 2.5 years in Orlando. I always think of him as being with the Lakers first. And I've shortchanged him the first 4 years of his career. So.
Yeah.
There you are. So that's what we're looking for. Your favorite NBA journeyman. Put them on in there, and you will be eligible for the drawing. 24 days of giveaways. Again, 1 free month of all access premium Osmo content to the winner. And then everybody who leaves a comment on any of our shows will be eligible for our December 24th grand prize giveaway of 1 full year of Osmo premium content. If you want to test this out for 7 days, you can get all access to everything, including Fantasy Cruncher and the Slack channel. Use promo code EARLYBIRD when you sign up. Go to osmo.com, go to the join page, and pick a package. Make sure you get one that has Fantasy Cruncher in it, and then use the promo code EARLYBIRD, and you will get that package for 7 days gratis and have a chance to check us out. All right, with that, we are going to get on out of here. I want to say thank you to Adam. You can find him at Ship My Money DFS. I am at EMAC DFS, and Osmo is at Osmo_COM. With that, gamers, good luck.